Good morning, students. Today we are going to study about class coupling and cohesion. Before that, let me brief about yesterday's class. So, in the previous classes, you have studied what? Remembering what you have studied in the previous class? Yes, Impana. Hello.
Ma'am.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ and slides are visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what you have studied in the last class?
Method and
Yes.
object.
Messages and methods and the heuristics related to messages and methods, right? And before that, you have studied the concept of objects and classes. And today you are going to study about class coupling and cohesion. So today you are going to study what is a class coupling and cohesion, and we will see the heuristics related to class coupling and cohesion. Afterwards, we will move on to one more topic called as the dynamic semantics. Okay. So if time permits, I will going to explain the dynamic semantics. Otherwise, I'll complete the class coupling and cohesion in today's class. Okay, so we'll start with the class coupling and cohesion. So far, you have studied different heuristics related to objects and classes and messages and methods, right? And a number of heuristics deals with the coupling and cohesion between or within the classes. So here, you are going to study the coupling and cohesion within the class or between the classes. And we have the tight cohesion within the classes and loose coupling between the classes. Okay, so we'll see what is coupling and cohesion later. So first we'll see how we can apply the coupling and cohesion within the class and between the class. Within the class we will have the cohesion, and between the class we will have the coupling. Okay, clear? So within the class we will have the cohesion, and between the class we have the coupling. So then what is a cohesion? So here cohesion we are studying in terms of tight cohesion and coupling in terms of loose coupling between the classes. So first we'll see what is a tight cohesion. So tight cohesion is a function that implies that all the code making up the function is closely related. Means whatever the code you are going to write it for the given function, and that is closely related. And whatever the code that belongs to only that particular function itself. Okay, that is called as the tight cohesion. Clear? Tight cohesion is a function that deals with or implies that the code making up the function is closely related. So whatever the code you are writing to that particular function, that is closely related and belongs to that particular function itself. But the coupling is entirely different. The coupling we are going to study in terms of loose coupling, and this loose coupling is between the functions, whereas the cohesion is within the function, whereas the loose coupling is between the functions. And this implies that when one function wishes to use another, you should always enter and exit the function from one point. Suppose let us consider that I have written two functions, function 1 and function 2. Okay, with where function 1 wants to use the function 2. Okay, then the function 1 always should enter and exit the function f2 from one point. Clear now? So loose coupling means when one function wishes to use another function, it should always enter and exit from only one point. Yeah. So suppose I'm giving the example. Let us consider that function 1 is there, function 2 is there. Okay, I have two functions, function 1 and function 2, where function 1 wants to use function 2. Then whenever function 1 wants to use function 2, it has to enter into the function f2, and it can make use of it, the function f2, and it can exit. So entering and exiting should be at one point, or entry and exit to the function is from only one point. Clear? So loose coupling always says the functions can make use of by other functions, but only through the single entry and single exit. Understood now what is the cohesion and what is a loose coupling? Cohesion, it implies all the code making up that function is closely related, but coupling means whenever the one function wants to make use of other function, it can entry or exit to other function through a single point. So that indicates that there is a single entry and a single exit point for that particular function. And this leads to the heuristic in object oriented programming called as a function should be structured such that it has only a single return statement. Why? Because in the coupling we say that the function can enter to other function only through the single entry point and through the single exit point, right? So hence, the function should have is structured in such a way that it should have only a single return statement. Single return statement means only through that the function, other function can exit from that function. Clear? Hence, based on these loose coupling definition, we can define the heuristic such as a function should be structured such that it has only a single return statement. Now, is it clear? Cohesion and coupling. So here we are applying the cohesion within the class and coupling between the classes. Cohesion, it is called as the tight cohesion and it is belongs to our whatever the code we are writing for a function that is closely related, but a coupling, it is between the functions where one function can make use of other functions with a single entry and exit points. Now is it clear? Now what is the cohesion and coupling? Next we'll move on to the different forms of coupling. So there are five different forms of coupling called as the nil coupling, export coupling, overt coupling, coupling, and one more is surreptitious coupling. Okay, so we have five types of coupling: nil coupling, export coupling, overt coupling, covered coupling, and surreptitious coupling. So here this is surreptitious coupling. We'll see one by one in detail. So what is nil coupling, export coupling, and covered coupling? So first one is the nil coupling. So nil coupling implies that two classes that have absolutely no dependency on one another. Means, so here we have created class 1 and class 2 and these two classes are independent to each other and no class is depending on other class. Clear? Understood? Nil coupling. So in a system we have created two classes, class 1 and class 2, where class 1 and class 2 are not dependent on each other. They are independent classes. Means each class is not depending on any other class and that is called as nil coupling. And nil coupling eliminates one of the classes without affecting other classes. Means here, as I said, we have created two classes where these two classes are independent, right? Then if I want to delete one class, class 1, then I can directly delete it without affecting class 2. That is the advantage of using the nil coupling. Okay, when we have created the classes using the nil coupling concept, clear, and these classes are independent to each other. These classes are independent to each other, and whenever we want to delete one class without affecting the performance or the functionality of other class, we can directly delete the class. Suppose I have two classes, class 1 and class 2. I can directly delete class 1 without affecting the operation of class 2 or without affecting the behavior or anything about the class 2. Understood? So this is called as the nil coupling. That is the advantage. And it is not possible to have a meaningful application built with only nil coupling. So means if you want to build the application where the application consisting of different classes, in order to run the application in a meaningful manner, we should have the classes, they should dependent on each other, but we cannot build by using the nil coupling. Why? Because nil coupling supports only the creation of the classes that are not dependent to each other. If there is a dependency, then we cannot achieve the nil coupling. Clear? So, hence, meaningful application development is not possible with nil coupling. So if you want to develop the application, then we have to use other types of coupling techniques. Now clear? But with the nil coupling, the best we can produce is we can create a class library where the class library is a collection of standalone classes that have nothing to do with another class. Understood? So with the nil coupling, what is nil coupling? I explained. That is the two classes that have absolutely no dependency on one another, and the advantage of using the nil coupling is we can delete the class whenever we want without affecting other class. Understood? That is the advantage. But the disadvantage is by using the nil coupling, we cannot build the meaningful application. Clear now? But with the nil coupling, we can create a class library where this class library can consisting of only standalone classes where each class is not depending on other classes or they have nothing to do with another class. So this is about nil coupling. Understood? What is nil coupling? Yes, Sudeep? Sudeep?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood? Nil
Yes,
coupling. What is nil coupling? Advantage of nil coupling. Then the disadvantage is we cannot develop the meaningful applications by using nil coupling, but we can create a class library or we can construct the class library where the class library consisting of only the standalone classes. Yeah. Okay. Next, we'll move on to export coupling. Export coupling states that the one class is dependent on the public interface of other class. That is, it uses one or more published operations of another class. Understood? So here in the export coupling, if we have two classes, class 1 and class 2, where class 1 is depending on the public interface of class 2, means, so if the class 2 consisting of the operations, let us consider it consisting of operations add, subtract, multiply, division. These are the operations defined in the class 2, where the class 1, since it is depending on class 2, it can make use of those operations which are defined in class 2. And such type of coupling is called as export coupling. Understood now? What is export coupling? This coupling states that one class is dependent on the public interface of other class. That is, it uses one or more published operations of another class. So, best example is we have created class 1 and class 2, where class 1 is depending on class 2. The class 2 consisting of 4 operations. Let us consider add, subtract, multiply and division, and class 1 can make use of these operations, and that type of coupling is called as export coupling. Understood? And one more is overt coupling. So overt coupling occurs when one class uses the implementation details of another class with the permission. Once again, we'll consider the same example, class 1 and class 2, where class 1 is using the class 1 is depending on class 2. Okay. So here the class 2 implementation details are available. With the permissions, the class 1 can access the permission details of class 2. That is, that type of coupling is called as overt coupling. So overt coupling occurs when one class uses the implementation details of another class with permission. The permission may be the read only or write, update, like that. So for each class we are having the different credentials, right? So those permission credentials, along with the permission credentials, one class can make use of the implementation details of another class. So one example here it is given. A good example of overt coupling can be found in the friend mechanism in C++. That is, a C++ class X can grant friendship to another class Y, thereby granting the methods of class Y access to the private implementation details of class X. Means what? Here class X is there, class Y is there. Class Y is depending on class X. So class Y access the implementation details of class X. How? Through the friend mechanism which is available in C++. Okay. So class X is granting the permission to class Y. Okay. So based on the permission granted, the class Y can access the implementation details of class X. But see this. So here the implementation details are private in nature. So since the class X has granted the permission to class Y, so that the class Y can access the private implementation details of class X. Now you understood? Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Next, we'll move on to one more coupling technique called as covered coupling. Covered coupling is same as covered coupling, but no permission is granted to class Y. See here, if you consider the example of class X and class Y, here in the covered coupling, class X is granted the permission to class Y. So based on the granted permission, class Y access the private implementation details of class X. But in the covered coupling, so the class one class can make use of the implementation details of another class, but no permission is granted. So here, no permission is granted to the class Y. See here, if we invent a language that allows a class Y to state, I am a friend of class X and will take access to its private implementation, then the class X and Y are covertly coupled. But here, no permission granted is available. But in the code itself, if you modify that, if the class Y states that I am a friend of X and Y wants to access the implementation details of class X, then we say that both the classes X and Y are covertly coupled. Understood? The difference between overt coupling and covered coupling is, in overt coupling, the one class can access the implementation details of another class with the permission granted one, okay, with the use of the permission already granted to that particular class. But in the covered coupling, one class can access the implementation of other class but with no permission granted. Clear? So then how we have to modify the code? Here the class Y itself has to say that it is the friend of X so that it can access the implementation details of class X. Then we say that both the classes X and Y are covertly coupled. Is it clear now? Understood what is covered coupling? Next, we'll move on to surreptitious coupling. So surreptitious coupling states that a class X knows the internal details of class Y through some means. Whether it is legally or illegally, class X knows the implementation details of class Y. Then, if a class X uses a public data member of class Y, then X is said to be surreptitiously coupled to class Y. So actually surreptitious coupling means it is hidden coupling. Okay, hidden coupling means it can access other class details or other class functions. Clear? But it is not visible. Understood now? Now class X is surreptitiously coupled to class Y means the class X can access the implementation details of class Y, but it is not visible. And that type of coupling is called as surreptitious coupling. And this is the most dangerous form of coupling because it creates a strong implicit dependency between the behavior of Y and the implementation of X, because class X is illegally accessing the details of class Y where the class Y doesn't know about that. Okay, that type of coupling is called as surreptitious coupling. So this says that class X knows the internal details of class Y through some means, whether through the legal or illegal means. The class X knows the implementation details of class Y, and the class X try to use that or try to access the class Y details. And then we say that class X is surreptitiously coupled to class Y, and it is the dangerous form of coupling because this is a hidden coupling that is not visible to other class, and other class doesn't know that even its class details are accessing by the class X. And hence So because it creates a strong implicit dependency between the behavior of Y and the implementation of X. So this is about the different types of couplings. So what are those 5 couplings? One is the nil coupling, second one is export coupling, third one is overt coupling, fourth one is covert coupling, and fifth one is surreptitious coupling. So here we have studied what is cohesion and coupling, and after that 5 different forms of coupling. So first is cohesion, it is within the function and or within the class, whereas the coupling is between the functions or between the classes. Okay, we have 5 forms of coupling: nil coupling, export coupling, covert coupling, and surreptitious coupling. So nil coupling means no accessing. Each class is independent to other class. And with the nil coupling, we can eliminate one class without affecting the behavior of other class. But with the nil coupling, it is not possible to develop the meaningful application. But we can develop a class library where it consisting of only the standalone classes where each class is independent to other class. And the export coupling says that the one class is depending on the public interface of other class so that it can make use of the operations of other class. Clear? So for example, if class X and class Y is there, class X can make use of the operations of class Y, and that type of coupling is called as export coupling. Overt coupling means one class can make use of the implementation of other class with the permissions. Okay. Example is given here. The class X and class Y is there. Class Y can access the implementation of class X with the permissions granted to class Y. And that type of coupling is called as ORT coupling. And covered coupling, once again, the one class can access the implementation of other class but with no permission. That is the difference between ORT coupling and covered coupling. In ORT coupling, the implementation details can be accessed with permission, but in the covered coupling, implementation details can be accessed with no permission. That is the major difference between overt and covered coupling. So in order to achieve the covered coupling, we have to modify it in a, or we have to invent a language such that the class Y itself has to say that I am the friend of X so that it can access the private implementation details of class X. Then we say that both the classes X and Y are covertly coupled. But surreptitious coupling means the class X knows the internal details of class Y through some means, and class X can access the or it can uses the public data member of class Y. Then the class X and the class Y are said to be surreptitiously coupled, where even though the class X is accessing the details of Y, where the Y is not having the idea about that. And the problem with this is the surreptitious coupling is the dangerous form of coupling because it creates a strong implicit dependency between the behavior of Y and the implementation of X. Clear? Niharika? Niharika? My voice is clear, right? ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Understood? Any doubt in coupling? Niharika, are you there?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then we'll move on to the different heuristics, other classes. That is, a class should only use the operations in the public interface of another class or nothing to do with that class. So nil coupling says that the classes are independent to each other. They cannot access the details or the operations of other class. But export coupling says that one class can access the operations of other class. Okay. So here the classes, whenever the classes are created, the classes should exhibit only the nil coupling or expert coupling. Understood? Because if you consider other form of coupling, overt, covert, or surreptitious coupling, where the implementation details are visible to the user, but that is not important, and that creates the problem, because if one user sees the, or one class sees the implementation details of another class, then the user or the developer, if he modifies the code, then it affects the operation of other classes. So that is there in other types of coupling, but in the nil coupling and the export coupling, that implementation details are not available. Hence, whenever the classes are created, the classes should exhibit only the nil or export coupling. Okay. All other forms of coupling allow class to give away the implementation details to other class, thereby creating the implied dependencies between the implementation of two classes. Why? Because in the overt or covert or surreptitious coupling, the each class is, whenever the class wants to access other class, then it is accessing the implementation details of other class. Then if it is accessing the implementation of other class, then what happens? That creates the dependency between the classes. And so let us consider an example, class 1 and class 2, where class 1 is accessing the implementation details of class Y. Then it indicates that the class 1 is depending on class 2. If any modification takes place in class 2, then that affects the class 1. Okay, so means the dependency is created between the classes, because the class 1 is accessing the implementation details of class 2. And if that is the case, means if there exists a dependency between the classes, then it creates the maintenance problem in future. Because when one of the classes wishes to change its implementation, as I said, if class 2 is changing its implementation details, it directly affects the class 1 operation, because class 1 is depending on class 2. Hence, the dependency should be avoided. Okay, the dependency between the classes should be avoided. In order to avoid the dependency between the classes, then the classes should have only the nil coupling or expert coupling. Understood now? The class cohesion strives to ensure that all of the elements of the class are strongly related. A number of heuristics are applied to dependency, we can apply the cohesion within the class. So if there is a cohesion means the whatever the code is there are the expert coupling, because other couplings are require the accessing of the implementation details. Other coupling techniques requires accessing of implementation details of other classes. Then if implementation details are accessed, then what happens? The dependency will be created between the classes. If there is a dependency between the classes, if one class wants to modify its code, then it affects the operation of other class. Then maintenance problem arises there. So in order to avoid that, we can apply the cohesion within the class, so that whatever the code within the class or within the function is strongly related, and that cannot be accessed by other class. So this is about heuristic 2.7. Understood, all of you? Heuristic 2.7. Okay, next we'll move on to heuristic 2.8. Heuristic 2.8 says that a class should capture one and only key abstraction. Okay, so here this heuristic says that a class should capture one and only key abstraction. So first you need to know what is a key abstraction. So key abstraction is defined as a main entity within a domain model. And this key abstraction show up as nouns within requirement specifications, and each key abstraction should map only to one class. Understood? So that is the main idea or main requirement in heuristic 2.8. So here the class should capture one and only key abstraction, means the key abstraction should map to only one class. Then if it maps to more than one class, what happens? And the designer is probably capturing each function as a class. So if the key abstraction maps to more than one class, then the designer is capturing each function as a class. And in a class, if more than one function is there, then designer is capturing each function as a class. Then if the class consisting of 5 functions and each function is treated as a class. Then if more than one key abstraction maps to the same class, then the designer is creating a centralized system. So here there are two possibilities. One possibility is if the key abstraction maps to more than one class, then the designer is capturing function as a class. But if more than one key abstraction maps to the same class, so in this case, in this point, what happens here? Key abstraction is mapping to more than one class. But here in the third point, here more than one key abstraction maps to the same class. There are two possibilities, right? More than one key abstraction can map to the same class, or same key abstraction can maps to more than one class. If same key abstraction is mapping to more than one class, then the designer is capturing each function as a class. But if more than one key abstraction maps to the same class, then the designer is creating a centralized system. And these type of classes are said to be vague classes, and these need to be split into two or more classes that capture one abstraction each. Understood? Here, if more than one key abstraction maps to the same class, then such type of classes are said to be vague classes, and vague classes needs to be split into two or more classes that capture one abstraction each. Suppose we have three abstractions. Okay, three abstractions are mapping to a class. Then these abstractions should be split into three or more classes. Abstract 1 for one class, abstraction 2 for another class, abstract 3 for one more class, like that. Okay, such type of classes are said to be vague classes. Understood? Heuristic 2.8. So here it is mainly dealing with the abstraction, means the class should capture one and only one key abstraction. Next one is heuristic 2.9. This says that keep related data and behavior in one place. Means whenever we are creating the class, keep the data and behavior of that class in a class itself. Means you should not treat it as a public one. Okay, treat that one as a private part of that particular class. Clear? A violation of this heuristic will cause a developer to program by convention, and this accomplishes some atomic system requirement need to affect the state of the system in two or more areas. The two areas are actually of the same key abstraction and should have been captured in the same class. And the designer should watch for objects that dig data out of other objects via some get operation. And this type of activity implies that this heuristic is being violated. So here, so what the main idea in the heuristic 2.9, or what it concentrates is, whatever the data and the behavior you have created for a class, that you have to keep it in that class itself. If some other class or objects try to access that with get operations and then this indicates that the heuristic 2.9 is violated. Understood? For example, if let us consider that we have class X and class Y. For class X, whatever the data we have created, whatever the operations or the behavior or messages we have created or written for that class 1, everything should be there in the class 1 itself, and that should not be accessed by class 2. If class 2 is illegally trying to access the data or behavior of class 1 through the get operation, then we say that that heuristic is violated. Understood? Heuristic 2.9 mainly it concentrates on hiding the data in the class itself, and that should not be made public. If it made public, then this heuristic gets violated. Or if other classes trying to access this data and behavior, then we say that this heuristic is violated. Understood? Any doubt in heuristic 2.9? So mainly it deals with hiding the data and behavior in one place. Means whatever the classes we have created, we have to keep the data and behavior in that class itself. Means we need to have the tied cohesion within the class or within the function. If other class or the function try to access this, then we say that the heuristic 2.9 gets violated. Clear? Any doubt in this?
No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to heuristic 2.10. And this heuristic says that spin off non-related information into another class. That is non-communicating behavior between the classes. So they have explained this with the help of the diagram. We'll see this. So this heuristic says that the developer should look for classes with a subset of methods that operate on a proper subset of data members. So what it indicates means whenever the implementers or the developers are trying to create the classes with a subset of methods that operate on proper subset of data members. And here we'll consider the data members F1 and F2, F3 and F4, where the method M1 and M2 accessing F1 and F2, clear? And the methods M3 and M4 are accessing F3 and F4. Or let us consider that we have only two methods, where method 1 is accessing the data members F1 and F2, and one more method 2 accessing the data members of this F3 and F4. If that is the case, then break up the classes so that it leads to non-communicating behavior. Okay, spin off non-related information into another class. That is the heuristic 2.1. So the extreme case is a class where half of the methods work on one half of the data members and the other half of the methods work on other half of the data members. See here, this is a wait class, right? Here we have the data members where one method is working on one half of the data members and the other method is working on other half of the data members. If that is the case, then split these into the independent classes, class 1 and class 2, where F1 and F2 are accessing the data 1 and F3 and F4 are accessing the data 2. Clear? Because here part of the methods, if you consider F1 and F2 are methods which are accessing the part of the data members here, and the remaining two F3 and F4 accessing this particular part of the data, then it is better to, so such type of classes are called as wake classes. Then it's better to break up these wake classes into independent classes, and these classes are treated as class 1 and class 2, so that the methods F1 and F2 access the data 1 members or this particular data members, whereas F3 and F4 access this particular data. Understood? This is the heuristic 2.10. So this is mainly concentrating on spin off the non-related information into another class, and that leads to non-communicating behavior. When we are doing that, because if half of the methods of the methods work on half of the data members and the remaining half of the methods work on remaining part of the data members, then in such cases we are breaking breaking up the weight classes into class 1 and class 2 so that they are independent to each other. Understood? So this is about the breaking up of weight classes so that it leads to non-communicating behavior. And one more example is also considered. This is the real world example where we are considering the dictionary class. See here, we are considering the dictionary class. Here we are considering two types of dictionary. One is the small dictionaries or pocket dictionaries, and second one is the larger dictionaries. Okay, to access, how the accessing takes place means the usage of the dictionary. How we are accessing the dictionary with the help of the words and with the help of their definitions, right? So you are suppose if I want to access a word coupling, then how I'm trying to access in the library, in the dictionary. First I look into the first character of that coupling word, right? C. Then I'll go to C. Then in that C, I'm going to check it for the remaining letter C, O, U, P, L, I, N, G, like that. Right. That is the normal manual method how we are using the dictionary and how we are looking for the meaning for a particular word. But in the computer language, if we say that here we can make use of the hash tables for the large dictionaries. Okay, for the small dictionaries, then we are just looking into the the property list, right? Then based on that we are going to access it, right? And here, see here, some part of the data members are used by some methods and the remaining is used by other methods. Then here we are breaking the dictionary into two independent classes, where the first dictionary is the P dictionary, that indicates that it is the a small dictionary with the property list, and second one is the large dictionary with the hash table. Okay, so here for small dictionaries the best implementation is a property list. So here we are using the property list for the implementation of a small dictionary, and we used hash table for the implementation of larger dictionaries, and we are separating these two as different classes. Then the whatever may be the implementation, whether it is a property list or the hash table, but both the implementations requires add and find the words. Find the words, because see here one word is given coupling, then I have to find that word either by using the property list or by using the hash table. And if new words to be added into the dictionary, then we're using this add implementation, right? So both the implementations are required. Add and find implementations are required for the dictionary, and we are separating that add and find. But here, see here, p add and p find for the property list, h add and h find is for the hash table. And this type of dictionary we are breaking into two new type of dictionary classes. One is called as the P dictionary, where we are using the property list implementation, and in the second case I am using the hash table implementation. Clear? So once again, this is the the creating the non-communicating behavior between the classes, and this is the real world example, whereas the previous one we are just taking in terms of the methods and the data. Clear? So this is the about heuristic 2.10, and this says that spin off the non-related information into another class. That is, we are creating a non-communicating behavior between the classes. Means we are treating each class as independent to one another. Okay, each class should not be dependent on other class. So weight classes we are using class is independent to other class. And the real world example we are considering the example, large dictionary, whereas a small, whatever may be the implementation, but both the list requires the add and find functions in order to find the word from the dictionary or in order to add the word into the dictionary. So this is about the heuristic 2.10. 10. The cohesion within the function, then coupling between the classes. Then you have studied 5 different forms of to cohesion and coupling. At 11:40, yes. Pragati class is next to.
Yes, ma'am.
So then 2 more topics are there: dynamic semantics, and one more is there that I will cover it in the next class. So okay. So here dynamic semantics, abstract classes, and roles versus classes. I require one more class to complete this chapter. So Saturday, my class is there on Saturday, right? At 11:40. Yes, I'll complete these 3 topics in the Saturday's class. If I complete these 3 topics, the chapter will be completed. Any doubt in today's class?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Then if no doubt, then I will end my class. And okay, then have a good day. Yes?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.